Here's the majestic geography of the Canadian province of Alberta explained by an American as quickly as possible. Are you ready? Here we go. Alberta is a scenic province located in Western Canada, bordered by British Columbia and Saskatchewan to the west and east, Northwest Territories to the north, and the U.S. state of Montana to the south. It's both the fourth largest and fourth most populous Canadian province, behind Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, with about 5 million people. Alberta is almost the same size as Texas and has about as many people as Alabama. It's the most significant of Canada's 3 prairie provinces, alongside Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and is the only of the 3 to have notable topography. In all of Canada, Alberta is unique, as it is the province with the northernmost major population centers. For example, the provincial capital Edmonton is the 2nd largest city in the province and the 6th largest metro area in all of Canada. And yet its 1.5 million residents are hundreds of miles north of the US border, the northernmost metropolitan area of that size in the Western Hemisphere, about the same latitude as Hamburg, Germany. Alberta's largest city, Calgary, is the largest city in Canada, more than 100 miles from the US border. Interestingly, these 2 metro areas only have about a 5% difference in population, giving the province a barbell-shaped population distribution map, with 2 equal-sized lobes around Edmonton and Calgary, and with the province's much smaller 3rd largest city, Red Deer, sitting in the handle between. In all, more than 75% of Albertans live in the narrow corridor along Highway 2 between these 2 cities. Why are these cities so far north, though? Why don't Alberta's cities cling to the warmer climate of the southern border like every other province in Canada? Well, the answer to that question is really interesting and explains a lot about Alberta's geography. You see, Alberta is one of very few regions in Canada where the southern part of the province is less habitable than the central and northern regions. You see, the high peaks of the Rocky Mountains on Alberta's southwestern boundary cast a rain shadow over the rest of the province, meaning Alberta is one of Canada's driest provinces, with this effect being most severe in its southeastern corner, an area so dry that it's almost desert-like. Sometimes we'll hear Albertans describe this as Canada's only desert, but that isn't quite true. Canada's only desert is in next-door British Columbia. This area receives just enough rain to not technically be a desert, but still shares the inhospitable conditions and infertile soils of a true desert. In all, the most habitable region in Alberta, with some of the best soils in all of Canada, is this yellow area here, known as the Aspen Parkland, which circumnavigates the driest regions of the rain shadow and provides enough rain to sustain populations and agriculture, while still being just far enough south to avoid the worst of the polar climate further north. And boy, can the weather here get crazy. The complicated mess of winds coming off the Arctic and the mountains give Alberta the most intense year-to-year winter temperature swings of any place in the world. Some winters are almost temperate, while others are downright Siberian. Alright, you waited long enough. How about those mountains? While most of Alberta's borders are straight lines, its southwestern border with British Columbia follows the continental divide of the mighty Rocky Mountains. Some of North America's most jaw-dropping natural scenery can be found here. Specifically, the expansive national parks of Banff and Jasper are world-renowned for their spectacular mountain vistas. The few narrow, winding passes through these mountains are the most important land transportation routes connecting Canada's Pacific coast to the rest of the country. For all their fame, though, Alberta's Rockies are not as high as some other places in the range, with its highest mountain, Mount Columbia, sitting at about 3,700 meters or 12,200 feet, shorter than the highest points of Colorado, Montana, British Columbia, or Yukon Territory. What these mountains might lack in relative height, though, they make up for in drainage, and thousands upon thousands of rivers pour across the province northeastwardly, irrigating farms, forests, and cities on their way to the Arctic and, depending on how you look at it, Atlantic oceans. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Alberta's rivers go largely one of 2 places, the Arctic Ocean or the Hudson Bay. And depending on how you look at it, the Hudson Bay can either be classified as an inlet of the Arctic or Atlantic Oceans. And if you think it's the latter, that gives Alberta something very special. The only triple divide in the entire world, a place where the watersheds of 3 oceans meet. Snow Dome sits right at the continental divide of the Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic Ocean. But bad news for Canadians, if you think the Hudson Bay is part of the Arctic Ocean, which I, as an unbiased third-party observer, do, North America's triple divide is actually located in Montana. The last and perhaps most pertinent aspect of Alberta's geography are these, the oil sands. Covering vast stretches of northern Alberta, these enormous deposits of viscous petroleum are the most productive fossil fuel reserves in all of Canada. Alberta is almost single-handedly responsible for Canada's fossil fuel production and is the 4th largest producer of natural gas in the world. Extraction of these sands has been hugely disruptive to the economy, environment, and geopolitics of Canada. Let me explain. The oil rush here, which only began in earnest in the late 20th century and is growing more and more every year, has made Alberta the wealthiest province in all of Canada by GDP per capita at over 100,000 Canadian dollars per year, or about 70,000 USD. But as you can see in this graph of Alberta's oil exports, almost 75% of it goes to the United States, with only 11% being consumed in country. This means that in some ways, Alberta is more tied financially and culturally to its southern neighbor than to its government in Ottawa. You can see that in the province's politics as well. Alberta is the most conservative province in all of Canada. Outside of its major cities, it voted almost uniformly for the Conservative Party in the recent election. All this wealth, though, serves to make Alberta one of the best developed provinces in all of Canada, with Calgary frequently ranking as one of the most livable cities in the world, and Alberta having the highest human development index of any province, only by a tiny bit though. In all, if you're an American, you can think of Alberta as kind of like Canada's version of Utah. Conservative but wealthy, naturally beautiful but heavily dependent on resource exploitation, and centered on a linear metropolitan area anchored by 2 large cities. Albertans and Canadians in general, let me know in the comments if you agree with that assessment, and let me know if I missed anything about this province as well. Everybody else, let me know where you think we should go in our next video. Thank you so much for watching. Follow for more geography content.